reliving what it was like when I get a phone call at 6 o'clock when we're having dinner, and our kids back then were 6 and 8. Keith and Patty are dead. What are you talking about?
And you called me.
And then I called Ron, and then he called Doug.
Bruce is telling me Keith and Patty are dead. It didn't compute. It didn't compute. It just, you don't even know where you are. And we then went down to my dad's house, which is where Keith and Patty were living. Keep in mind, this is a guard-gated community. And that whole evening into the early morning hours, the next morning.
Sitting on the curb in the cold. We had to sit out there, not knowing what's going on, and having the house released back to us 3 and 4 days later, having to go back into the house and tidying up and dealing with fingerprint dust everywhere.
We were so frustrated as a family because we didn't know anything, really, other than Patty was raped, they were tied up, and they were bludgeoned to death. And Patty was much more brutalized than Keith. The 3 remaining brothers taking the mattress to the dump. That, you just never get over that. There's just certain snippets that will always be embedded in your mind
That's true.
You don't get over. The worst part of this case really were the first 17 years. It never made any sense. The horrendous amount of money that my dad spent trying to solve this case. The private investigators. It was so frustrating not knowing. You cannot let it go. And that was the worst part really about this. Finally, after 17 years, when there was the DNA connection that was made, all of a sudden, you have some semblance of the why, and that's how this whole DNA issue became so important, and really the family's efforts to try to solve the case through DNA. The Golden State Killer took out my baby brother and his wife. My dad spent untold sums of money trying to solve this case. The amount of money that my older brother had to commit to this effort was unconscionable. To get an initiative just to qualify for the ballot, over $1 million. And that's before you actually get into the election process. The amount of effort he had put in for years, and then fortunately Proposition 69 then passes.
The euphoria of the passage of Prop 69 in 2004 was tremendous. Our expectation was we could finally solve the case. And as the months and years went on, the expectation was that this was a repeat offender and that eventually his DNA would show up in the system. And it didn't. It was pure disappointment. We certainly never thought the case would be solved, and I believe the vast majority of the other victims had the same framework, because there's only so long until you reach a point where you got to move on. You got to move it somewhere in that little cubbyhole of the memory quilt that you have, and deal with it sometimes, but not let it dominate your everyday. I've been going on a roller coaster for 40 years. This out of the blue solution happens, boom, just like that. And all of it, everything you tried to do, putting it behind you, kind of put it in perspective, not interrupting your day, your life, all that goes away and it's right back there, and you're dealing with it.
I actually went to Keith and Patty's grave They're in the same grave together. I took a couple roses and just said, we finally got him. It was a tough day. Keith was the smartest of all of us.
He was.
He graduated from UCI, undergrad, cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa. Literally was 3 months away. He was going to graduate in December of 1980 from medical school. Patty was a pediatric nurse. He wanted to be an emergency room doctor. He wanted to help people. And he was not only the smartest of all the other brothers, he was also the best athlete. And to really think of what a difference he would have made in this world. How many lives he would have saved as an emergency room doctor. And you reflect back on just, what a waste. And that's part of what makes this so difficult and so challenging. Keith was that special. He was the most special of all of us. And he was the youngest, and he died first. And that's just so wrong on so many levels. That's why you never give up. You do not get over this.